Hi and welcome to Mrs. Mummypenny Talks, and I have another wonderful guest here to talk about big questions, a guest who regularly appears on my podcast, Mr. Pete Matthew of Meaningful Money. Thank you for joining me yet again.
Always a pleasure, mate. How you doing?
I'm all right. So we've had a few technical issues.
It's always the way. You just kind of get used to it. It's stressful, isn't it?
Oh, but I think we're there. I've got a new studio set up. Pete's always had a studio set up, so things are new to me. I'm not doing the technical stuff, I have to point out, because I'm not very good at technical stuff. Right. So we are talking about a big question. I just need to introduce the question because it's one of my favourites that I've come up with for the whole of season 7. We talk a lot offline anyway because we're mates, but the big question or statement is: a man is not a plan, which we will talk more about after you do an introduction, Pete, of who you are, where you come from, and why you do what you do.
Yep. So my name is Pete Matthew. I'm a chartered financial planner, so I still advise clients. I'm a financial advisor. I have a company down in Penzance called Jackson's, which has been around for 51 years. I've been doing my job for 28 years. So I still love seeing clients and advising them and helping them kind of navigate the pretty complex UK financial services world so that they can live really well. Money's just a tool at the end of the day. My job is to help them use that so that they can live great lives. I'm also a podcaster and a YouTuber, and I've been doing that for 15 years, incredibly. My hair wasn't grey when I started, and now it is. So it tells you how long it's been or how much it's taken out of me, one of the two. And I'm also a dad and husband. I've got 2 grown-up daughters, hence the big statement, because that's something I've drilled into my beautiful 25 and 22-year-old daughters. A man is not a financial plan. In other words, raising them to be financially independent and resilient. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about, right?
Absolutely. And I'm just going to big you up a little bit more than what you've actually spoken about, because you're such a humble person. So number one, we are both from Penzance. Yep. So we have a natural affinity and bonded. You live very near my sister, like scarily near, which is
about 100 yards, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very weird. And I think I first heard you where Damien Fay was interviewing you. So probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah, at least.
And Damien, who's another very prolific financial commentator in the podcasting and just financial world. And I heard you say you were from Penzance, and I immediately sent you a message. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, so we've been friends since then. And you are incredibly successful in the YouTube and the podcasting world. So you have nearly 150,000 subscribers on YouTube. You may well hit 150,000 by the time this comes out. And I know you've worked incredibly hard on that over the last sort of few years. And your podcast is probably one of the, if not the most successful financial podcasts in the UK.
Yeah, one of, I would say. I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare, but it's, coming up 8 million total downloads.
Just 8 million.
600 episodes. Yeah, which is a lot in the podcasting world by any stretch.
That is an awful lot. And you also have the Meaningful Money Academy, which is a very well-priced sort of coaching academy thing you can go through at a lower, medium and upper level of financial education.
Yeah, it's sort of life stage based, really. Yeah. So the foundational stuff is free, all the sort of how to set a budget and stick to it, how to get out of debt, basics of protection. And then there's the build wealth section. So if you're, you kind of got the basics sorted, but you're looking to invest, optimize your workplace pension, all that sort of stuff. That's the build wealth section. That's paid for, but it's a one-off cost. And then there's the retirement planning phase. So that's obviously, as the name suggests, for those who can see kind of retirement hovering in over the horizon and wanting to get ready for it, transition into retirement, and then sort of optimize and maximize all the opportunities when it comes to pensions and all that sort of stuff.
And just the 2 books,
Yeah, just 2 books. One is the Meaningful Money Handbook. Well, it came out of the podcast, really. Harriman House approached me, the publisher, and the first one, they said, we'd like the book of the podcast, please. So it's like, okay. So that's basically everything financial up to retirement. And then the second book that came out this year, 2025, as we're recording this, that's the retirement guide. So, and it's obviously it's UK focused. It's just trying to teach people how to navigate the UK system with all its quirks and weirdness, but to try and get rid of all the stuff that you don't need to know, and just, this is what you do need to know, this is what you need to do to kind of navigate this stuff well. So yeah, I'm having a ball, Lynn. 15 years in and I'm still enjoying it.
And I have been listening to the retirement guide. Now, I'm not at the point where I need to access, well, I can't access my retirement money. And I'm finding it really cathartic because your voice is so lovely to listen to.
That's very kind. Even on 1.5 speed.
Do you know what? I did try to speed it up, and you talk at exactly the right pace for that subject.
Good. I know. Well, I listened on 1.2, 1.25. It's pretty much all podcasts and audiobooks. So yeah, maybe it just comes naturally. I don't know.
Yeah. So I am very much enjoying the book, and you just explain things in a really easy to understand way. Like, I mean, that's all anybody in our space of talking about money, commentary, writing, that's should be what we all do, but actually not that many people manage it. I think you're very talented at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Cool. Right. So you've already said that you've got 2 girls who are 23 and 21, or
25 and 22, nearly.
25 and 22. And I have my 3 boys who are a little bit younger, who are 18, 16 and 13. But I always think it's an interesting perspective with us because you're a man bringing up girls and I'm a woman bringing up boys. Hopefully both in a kind, resilient, caring way. I always think, like, you know, when people say to you, what would you want your children to be? I just want my children to be kind and caring and polite and resilient. That's really, really important.
Totally. Honestly, the world's messed up as it is, and I think if you can teach them how to be a good human, then that's halfway. It's funny in that you get to a certain age as an adult, and you start sort of reassessing how you were parented, and particularly when you become a parent. And it's like, okay, I don't want to apply that. I do want to apply that, and you still make a load of mistakes and stuff. But I just think it's probably, for those of us who are blessed with children, it's probably our highest calling is to try and raise them as good people.
Yeah, agree. So, well, I mentioned the word resilience, but I specifically want to sort of hone in on financial resilience and sort of leading this back to, I guess we should start with talking about a man is not a plan and what that actually means to you, because that's got a very different meaning to you, maybe as it has to me, or maybe not at all. But certainly I think our thoughts around this was, there's a bit of a movement in the social media world that I've seen with younger girls of going out looking for a rich husband, and that's going to resolve all of their issues, which is very worrying. I think it's originating from America. It's the sort of trad wife movement,
which is rooted in evangelical Christianity, I think, as well, where what I would consider old-fashioned sort of roles are still very, very much encouraged. I was, to some degree, not to the severity that you pick it up in America, but I was raised in a similar tradition. I was raised in an evangelical sort of happy clappy, many people would say, church tradition. And a lot of those values, I remember not shortly after we got married, Jo and I, she was given a copy of a book called The Excellent Wife, right?
Okay.
And like chucked it straight away, chucked it in the bin. Honestly, it was like 1950s. Have a meal ready for your husband when he comes home from work. Make sure the house is clean. Put lipstick on. She's like, for God's sake, what century is it? So that that didn't last long. I mean, there's no way Jo would have done it anyway because she's far too. Well, yeah. Somebody
Okay,
in the
maybe don't
church.
answer
Do you know
that.
what I mean? No, somebody in the church. So it's just like, yeah, there is a trend towards that, definitely, and it's not a good trend.
No. And it's even more worrying when you see it come over here. And I can see it from my perspective. I absolutely was brought up to be an independent woman, to go and get an education, to go and get the best job ever. That's what my mum instilled in me. Maybe because she was of the generation where she was encouraged to go and find a husband and she didn't
Mhm.
want me to be that person. But then, as a mum bringing up boys, how I talk to my boys about it is I'm always like, try to find a partner who's sort of on a level, the same level as you. So you're maybe
Mm.
earning the same amount of money. You can both afford to do the same kind of things. So it's balanced.
Yeah,
No.
honestly, we could potentially dance in circles around this, couldn't we? So I think
Yeah.
obviously choice of partner is important. I think that is informed by the values you instill in your kids, right?
Yeah.
So they're less likely, I would argue, to choose a unworthy, an imbalanced partner. I say less likely, right? The world is full of variables and unknowns, but
Yeah.
if you instill good values in your kids, they're more likely to choose somebody with a partner who reflect those to at least some degree. Do you know what I mean? And then,
Yeah.
and of course, then you're like, okay, so how do we raise kids in those ways? So we've got if anything, a bit of a timeline. So you've kind of hooked this on a man is not a financial plan. Of course, that's heteronormative. My girls are both straight, but if they hadn't have been, it wouldn't have really worked, wouldn't it? But it's nice because it rhymes. But
Yeah.
the point is, don't rely on somebody else for
Yeah.
your own financial resilience unless you are utterly committed to that person. And that's not something you can know at outset, I don't think.
And and
So
and
there's a whole lot we can talk about here.
and that's, but you can't ever make that statement, because when you oh, we're going to go all over the place here, and I need to be careful about what I say. But
Don't worry about time, by the way. Just in case you want to cut this out, don't worry, we're okay till 4.
oh, okay, cool. So I right, let's go back to what you said about the whole point of a man is not a plan. And yeah, it's all about having that financial independence. And if anything is to go wrong, which inevitably it does, I hate to say that, but we all know 42% of marriages end in divorce. A
Mm-hmm.
much higher proportion of that, people are unhappy.
Yeah.
um I think having financial resilience all throughout your life and financial independence is extremely, extremely important, but more so for women than men, because of the traditional roles we're brought up with, because we still live in a patriarchal society where
We do. And
men
and
are
yet,
the provider.
yes, and also it's just fact because, if kids do come along,
Mhm.
it's a biological fact that I'm not able to have children. So Joe had to take time out of
Yeah.
work. Now, she could have gone back straight away. We chose not to, but that's just the way we did things. But she could have gone back straight away. But it's just fact that women,
Yeah.
on average, end up with a pension fund size 1/3 the size of their male counterparts. It's still fact, horrifically, in 2025, that on average women are paid less for doing the same job as their male counterparts. It's just it doesn't make any sense in this day and age, but it is the case. Until that's not the case, you're dead right. Women have to work harder. It's harder for women to be financially resilient and independent. There's no doubt about that, which is why
Mm.
I've tried to drum habits into my girls from as soon as they understood what money was and how it works,
Yeah.
so that they are not dependent on somebody else. I mean, my view is that if you're in a long-term committed partnership, you should work together. But I'm a long way from Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's big, one of the biggest financial commentators in the US. He's built an enormous business, but he's steeped in that evangelical Christian tradition.
Oh,
And he's
really?
basically, look, everything's joint, no arguments. Well, and I think that's catastrophically bad advice. right?
Yeah.
I think you should work together. I think you should have some joint finances, and certainly you should plan and build together. But there's no reason to just chuck everything in a pot.
Yeah.
Can if you want, but that's certainly not default advice. And I would be advising my own girls against that, even though, and here's the irony, that's what Joe and I do and always have. But, we're committed, all that sort of stuff. So it's not easy. It's really hard to be too prescriptive.
And I mean, you appear to be in a long committed relationship.
Married 28 years so far. So
yeah, you've done well so far. And it was different for me. So I did combine everything because I fell in love, and because of my beliefs, because of my lineage and all that kind of stuff, then I was, what is yours is mine, even though I was the one earning 3 times what he was. And I'm the one that had the house. He was the one that moved in with the opposite debt. And it all just got combined. And then when you do inevitably divorce, because our financials were so unaligned from the beginning, it's such a big thing that contributes to a relationship, having that financial joined upness. You move in the right direction.
yeah.
And when we came to divorce, everything had to be split down the middle, and he did very well out of it.
Sure. Kids and money,
But that's
those
the
are the
law.
tricky things, right? Yeah, well, yeah, certainly that's the starting point. Kids and money, those are the tricky things, aren't they, to sort out in the event of a relationship breakdown. I mean, that I've never been through, so I can't really speak to it. But I think it's less about what you come with. I'm so aware I've got to sort of tiptoe around this. I don't want to offend anybody, neither do I want to give the impression that I have all the answers either, because I absolutely don't.
No, and
But
it's our experience, right?
yeah. I just think, I mean, obviously I've worked with countless families, 28 years doing my job. I've probably worked with 2,000 or 3,000 different families. And the ones that I see succeed financially, there's almost always imbalance, either in earnings or in assets. So, for instance, Joe, assuming we both inherit, if like all our parents were to die now, we both inherit, she will inherit a great deal more than me, right? And yet I earn currently a great deal more than she does. So, there's imbalances in all kinds of ways, but the couples I see that have been most successful are at least aligned in terms of the direction. They're aligned in what is important to them when it comes to spending. You tell me what's important. You show me your bank statement, and your bank statement will reflect what's important to you, right? And the couples and families that I see winning most are the ones that are at least aligned on what's important. They agree on what they're working towards, even if the money itself is imbalanced.
Yeah.
Right? And to be honest, I think that's true in life as well as in money. Alignment on how you raise the kids, alignment on what kind of holidays you like, how you feel about philanthropy and giving, the morality that you raise your kids with. And, there's no right or wrong answers to all that. You just kind of got to find your way. But, man, if you're going to choose a life partner, and things change, right? But that you want to choose the one with whom you are aligned on these big things, hopefully. But, there are a million reasons why relationships break down, and it's not always about a misalignment. Somebody might have an affair or, whatever. So, I think that's where it starts, really, because money tends to follow intent and goals and what's important. If you set that stuff right, the money should follow.
Yeah.
There's practical stuff to think about, but that's basically what happens.
Yeah. That's good. This is why you should be a therapist.
I don't want to be a therapist. You wouldn't want me as a therapist. I'd be like, come on, sort it out, snap out.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about financial resilience specifically in kids, and let's treat this in different stages. So I'd like to talk about when the children are young, so like primary school, And then if we can talk about when they're teenagers, and then if we can talk about when they're in their 20s, like your daughters, because this is a well-known fact that is spouted around the internet, that children build their money mindset and their money beliefs at the age of 7, like Cambridge University done a study into it. So that's very young. So the fact
and a
that
bit scary.
Very scary, because you think a 7-year-old knows nothing about money. Well, no, they do.
Well, yeah, but they know how they pick up the power and the impact that money has, don't they? I have a story on this. I remember when my youngest daughter was, I'd say 10, and she spent the day at a friend's house, right? And I went to pick her up 4:00, something like that. And I went into the house. I'd never been in before. And lovely, you got chatting with the mum, small talk. Right, come on then, Kate, off we go. As I walked sort of out towards the front door, down the hallway, on the back of the letterbox was kind of a lovely sort of star collage-y thing around the letterbox. And it said something like, money, checks, and good things will come through here. So the mum obviously was kind of manifesting that, money and checks would just flow through the letterbox. Now, you can take a view on that, but that's quite a message to send to a young preteen child, that, we just kind of send thoughts out into the universe that money will come to us without doing anything for it. All right. That's the sort of messaging that kids pick up. I think whenever you talk, if you and your partner, or the way you talk to your kids about money, either you talk to each other or you talk about kids, it's kind of the feeling around money that young children pick up, is my understanding. So if the answer is always we can't afford that, then that's obviously a sort of fairly, I mean, it might be true, right? I'm not saying you should lie to your kids. Or things like money doesn't grow on trees. Bit of a scarcity type mindset. Whereas, perhaps a better way to put it might be, well, okay, we have a set amount of money and we have to decide what we're going to spend it on, right? What's important to us right now? Maybe the thing that we're talking about isn't important. We've got other things. Wouldn't it be great if instead we went, away to the caravan for a week, as opposed to having that toy there? We can't do both, so we have to decide.
Yeah.
And just, it's sort of messaging, feelings, tension between parents. Kids pick this up with unbelievable clarity. So I think, that's the things we need to be really, really careful. I mean, a 7-year-old doesn't need to know about ISAs and, pension tax relief and stuff. It's a nonsense.
What's pension tax relief? Sorry, I don't mean
that. do you know what I mean? So they don't need to know the detail. They just need to know the basics. But you can then be teaching them some sort of practical stuff about, if you decide you want to give your kids, quid a week pocket money or whatever, what do they do with that? Do they, I've seen people do like different envelopes, right? We're going to decide, you give them like 10 P's. Nobody does this in cash these days, right? Just stay with me. But, you give them a £5 or whatever, or £5 coins, and you say, right, how much are we going to spend now? How much are we going to put aside so we can spend it on something a bit bigger later on? How much are we going to give away?
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. And just, these sorts of very basic fundamentals about how we use money, and really that money is to be used and controlled, as opposed to it being a sort of outside force that happens to us. I think if we can, it goes for adults and kids alike, if we can control money, really that's what it's all about. It's not a passive force. You have to grab hold of it and wrangle it sometimes, and wrangle it to your will.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll control you. Money makes a great servant, but a lousy master. All right. So you need to keep control of it. And that starts with basic rudimentary budgeting and all that sort of stuff, and goes to all the rest of the things that you and I talk about all the time, like pension tax relief. All right. So it's messaging rather than practicalities, I think.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how powerful that stuff is. And the problem is the most difficult organ in the body to control is your tongue. My God. I mean, I can hold my hand up to this. It's so hard to control what you say in the moment. And yet the kids pick up those messages all the time. So when I hear you say things like that Cambridge study, kids pick up all their money messages before they're 7. They're just like, oh my God, how much damage have I had to undo with my children since then,
And it's not just stuff from you as the parents either. It's stuff from
True.
what teachers say to them, what they see in friends' house, like your daughter.
Yeah.
I always think it's quite interesting to think back to like your earliest money memory. Like I like because I've just been I was revising some of my book because I'm turning my book
Mhm.
into an audio book. So
Okay.
I'm
Well done.
revising it into a second edition. And chapter 1 is all about my life story. I mean, you've got a
Mhm.
quote on the back of my book, so you have read my book.
I have.
But my first money memory was counting 20p and 5p coins with my dad, because he used to collect money in silver tankards, and I would
Mm.
count it all up. I was literally like 4 or 5, and put it into bags, and we'd go to Bradford and Bingley together and put the money into his bank account, with the check, with that
Yeah.
book that you had to write in.
Yeah.
um and this is like 1981 or 1982 in Penzance. But I think that's quite a powerful first money memory, because what that is saying to me was that we didn't have scarcity of money at home. Like, dad used to have his coins that he saved.
Mhm.
He was encouraging of me to count it up and trusted me to help him, that I could add up that there was, so many 20p's in a £10
Mhm.
bag of,
Yeah.
so that's all like a really positive basis of my first money memory.
Yeah, I think my first money memory, I think I was probably about 6, because my older brother is 10 years older than me. So he would have been 16 and getting his first job. And I remember my dad sitting him down with his brand new NatWest checkbook and showing him how to write a check. Right. That's all I remember. But my abiding childhood memory, all the way until I was 18, if I ever asked my dad or mom anything about money, like their finances, do we have a mortgage, car, anything that was financial related, the immediate response was always, that's none of your business, son.
Really?
It was
What,
just
that
utterly a
frame?
taboo subject. Yeah. And so I remember having, like, I nearly said another word there, tellings off as a teenager, because I was terrible with money as a teenager. I used to spend it all before I had it, right? And just spend it on like sweets and crap that I didn't need. And I remember getting several tellings off when, like, for instance, at one point I vividly remember I was about 16, I needed new trainers. And so mom was like, yeah, cool, all right, let's go get you some new trainers, but you're going to contribute. And I was like, I have no money. And I was working, I was working shifts at Mackie D's by then. She's like, why haven't you
Yeah.
got any money? I'm like, I don't know. But I never had a single, the irony, of course, I remember my earliest memories watching my dad teach my brother how to fill in a checkbook. I never had the equivalent lesson. I never had any money input from my parents at all. So I was a financial train wreck until I met my wife.
Yeah.
Right. So my parents kind of raised me, I was kind of like financially handicapped, but by omission, because they never said
Yeah.
anything about it. I'd not. And so where else am I going to get it from? Fortunately, I mean, my wife was brilliant with money. So I married well on
Yeah.
that score, and she taught me everything. So this is before I became a financial advisor, I should say. I learned a bit, obviously, when I did the training for that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when it practically, she taught me everything. And
Yeah.
so I've always been slightly annoyed about that. I never raised it with them, but it's like that's actually quite a big thing to miss out. I had a wonderful childhood
I
in many
but
regards.
it's put like how so my mum and dad were born in the 1930s. Your mum and dad maybe a little bit
40s.
in the 40s. So similar generation. They didn't talk about anything like that. They didn't talk about emotions, let
No,
alone money, death, sex, relationship.
no. Just had to figure all that out.
Literally, we
Yeah.
just had to figure all of this stuff out from our friends
Hmm.
or from magazines.
Yeah. Exactly
Honestly.
right. Yeah, it's a definitely quite an omission that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's I think it's such an easy one to avoid. I mean, it's easy in that you can talk to your kids about anything, but it helps if you know a little bit about this stuff yourself, doesn't it? So I
Mm-mm.
understand that a lot of people might not think it's easy to hand over good money lessons to their kids.
My best friend Becky reminded me of a money memory of when we were 16, so moving into the sort of teen stage, where so she's been my best friend since we were 11, and we're still best friends. And we were going through my dad's personal documents. I do not know why we were doing this. I think it was just after my mum had died, so we were trying to find out stuff.
Mm.
This is crazy. And we found my dad's pay slip. So my dad was Marines, then the Army, then the MOD. So dad was he still working when mum died? I think my dad had just retired when mum died. So we found his last pay slip, and he was earning 30 grand a year in 1996.
Good money.
That is really good money. Like, let's add, that's probably 70 grand, 80 grand now.
Yeah, something like that. Probably
And
not
we,
far off.
and we were living in Penzance,
Yeah.
cheap.
It's like 3 times the average wage in Penzance, probably. Certainly 2 times.
So actually, we were loaded. But I was never taken on holiday. I mean, I never wanted for anything. Father Christmas would always be kind to me, but I never asked for anything out of outlandish, because I never thought we had much money. I literally thought we were like a working class family, but actually when you peel it back, we weren't middle class at all. We had plenty of money.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it? But that obviously was. So I guess it leads to the question, how much do you talk to your kids about money?
Yeah.
How much information is too much?
And that's what I want to talk to with teens, because
okay.
So my boys are 18, 16 and 13, and I'm in a difficult financial situation, as you well know, and as you know, the public knows. Like, I'm a single mum, I've got a mortgage that's a lot of money, I'm paying off debt. I have 3 man children living with me all the time.
Yeah.
And they need to know one's just about to go off to university. So I do talk to them quite openly about money. And, oh gosh, this is quite a terrible admission. It's had different impacts on them in good and bad ways. So I think I've probably told them too much. But I also want them to know that I'm literally busting a gut to keep the roof over our heads. And I've been so close to the edge. Like, I've literally been like 2 or 3 months away from losing the house. And I just need them to appreciate that I am a single mum fighting every month and not getting any support from their dad. So a lot of people say you're meant to like protect your children from these kind of. I just don't know the right thing or the wrong thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There is a right or wrong thing, man. We've got to sort of find our own way through this. I'm not sure it's ideal to completely kind of protect our kids from the realities, particularly not as they get older.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's age appropriate, right? When
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
Dylan's just about to go to university, so
he
has to manage his own budget. So he needs to know the truth that.
Yeah, and he needs to know you're not going to be able to bail him out.
Yeah.
All right. Whereas you might not go into perhaps quite so much detail with a 13-year-old, but
yeah,
I think it's important to sort of put money in its place, to sort of give it the weight that it deserves, and we've all got to learn how to manage it. And sometimes times are hard. We can still sort of express gratitude for what we do have. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not doing this, but endlessly complaining about how hard things is counterproductive. I think some context and say, look, it's pretty bloody hard at the minute.
Yeah.
But you know what? I could have been born in Ethiopia or something, so we're bloody lucky, actually. So let's, chin up. We'll do our best. We're going to keep working and all that sort of stuff, and it'd be generally a positive thing. I think obviously when you're with teenagers, you can talk about specifics and teach them practicalities. Usually, and I think we should be teaching basics of financial management by tertiary at the latest, 16 to 18. Because
Yeah.
usually they've got some kind of income at that point, even
Yeah.
if it's just a Saturday job or whatever. You know, my first Saturday job at 13, and it was £10.78 a week. I just did 8 hours on a Saturday and then £10.78. And, you know, it was cash in hand and got it at the end of the day. And you probably spent it by the time I got home with it, you know. But you can teach practicalities then. Okay, you got this much money coming in, you have to decide what you're going to do with it, and don't just decide that in a sort of spur of the moment. We're going to sit down and say, right, this much is coming in, what are we going to spend it on? We're going to spend it now, we're going to spend it later, we're going to help other people with it, right? Those are the only three uses of money. You spend it now, you invest it, or save it so that you can spend it later, or you give it away, right? In order, in my view, right?
Yeah.
So you can start to teach this at a rudimentary level.
Yeah.
Just get good. I mean, I remember like being at university, and you could tell who'd been taught to save.
Yeah.
Not me, but I was best mates with a guy who was a drummer, and he worked during the summer and bought a full set of really expensive cymbals for his drum kit, whereas I was been practically penniless, you know, the whole way throughout, because I just didn't have those same skills.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can teach that really from the second they come into some proper money, particularly if they're earning, and even
Yeah.
later on start to teach them about their pay slip and how that works and what it shows and all that sort of stuff. But I think you can get practical with teenagers and
Yeah.
also just give them context, keep money in its place, don't let it become a problem for them. Because pretty soon they're going to be managing student loans. They're going to be thinking about working on the
Yeah.
weekend to fund the beer habit when they're students, or saving up for a car, all that sort of stuff. And then that's serious, then, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. The first sort of big financial decision we've got in our house is so Dylan's just turned 18, so his junior ISA has matured.
Okay, now we're talking.
So yeah, so he's suddenly got 3,200 quid in his name. So the first thing I've done with him was to explain to him how the money was created, because you know it was 250 quid voucher from the government. I put in a little bit, not that much extra. I put in maybe 750 quid, and then the rest is just growth of stocks and shares over his 18 years of life. So that's quite a nice explanation to him. But then I'm like, but Dylan, this is now your money. But because he's quite sensible and very academic, like he's the one that's going to go off to uni. He's getting, you know, decent grades for his A levels and stuff. So I'm not concerned about him and the money. He'll probably spend some of it, and he'll probably leave the rest in a stocks and shares ISA.
Yeah, and it's a teaching opportunity that then, isn't it? Which I'm sure
Yeah.
you've taken. I mean, I've so I've sort of counselled quite a few kids over the years, particularly in my case, kids who have come into trust monies, not because they're rich, but because their parents have died. Right. So I can think of three individual sets of kids who have lost children, like you, lost parents, like you did, Lynn, like super early on. So two girls I'm thinking of particularly, their dad was a fisherman and he died at sea. All right. So, and he was separated from their mother and had life insurance, but no will, and the life insurance was not in trust. So the court ruled that the money went in trust for the kids. All right. So, and they were there at the time, like 8 and 10. So they weren't going to come into it
Who was
for
looking after the
8 years.
kids?
Oh, mum was still around. They
Okay.
lost dad. They were separated, right? So they were living with mum anyway, but they lost dad. And he had some life insurance. So, and it was £300,000 life insurance. So 150 grand went in for each of these kids. So, but because it's a statutory trust, there was no will. So it was essentially imposed by the court. These kids came into 150,000 quid at age 18. Now that's a hell of a thing. So when I've done that, and I can think of three individual sets of kids that I've helped sort of deal with this stuff, what you don't want to do is kind of load the money. It don't matter on the amounts. You don't want to load the money with guilt. You don't want to say, right, this money's coming to you, but your dad had to pass away for this, because that's a horrific message to send. Far better than what we did. It was, look, obviously this cost a great deal, right? It cost you your dad, which is a massive thing. But he took out this insurance so that you would be okay if anything happened to him. So it's not a case of, but don't you dare spend it. You got to look after it, right? Because, your dad did this for you. It's too much kind of weight and too much guilt applied to this money. It will cripple the children. So it was sort of framing it that, look, your dad has provided this for you. It means that you don't have to borrow student loans if you want to go to uni. It means that you've got a ready-made house deposit. This puts you streets ahead of most of your friends.
Yeah.
But let me show you, and we do this in sort of 18 months up until they come into the money. We start to explain the difference between saving and investing. We don't need to sort of give them tons of detail, but just the difference. And, we need to think about this money needs to last you. This is a brilliant head start, but you're not going to buy a £40,000 Audi with it, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? You need to buy a nice-ish car, but not a car that no other 18-year-old is driving, right? And so it's about framing it and just saying, look, this is a brilliant head start. It's cost you and your family dearly, but let's really kind of honor dad and look after it. Enjoy it because he would have wanted you to, but let's look after it and really get the best out of it. And let's talk about how to do that and start to just sort of drip feed that as they approached 18. Of course, at 18, they could have stuck two fingers up to me and their mother and said, forget it. I'm doing this my own way. It's my money. That's their legal right. None of them have. To the nth degree, I've got a client whose family net worth is about 15 million, right? He doesn't need to work, and probably the next two generations of the family don't need to work. But he is terrified that he'll ruin his kids. It's the thing keeping him up at night. Most of us worry about mortgage payments, right? That's not an issue for this family. But he's terrified that he will ruin his children, that they will end up lazy, no drive, because they don't actually need to work. Because if the way he's looking after the money, those kids will inherit 50 million, right? So that's a very different set of problems. But the roots are the same. Keep money in its place. It's not the answer to everything. Neither is it to blame for everything. It's something we can use and control, whether the numbers are in the sort of 8 figures or just a few hundred quid. It's about how we use it, what we use it for, and the fact that really money is just a tool for living life on our own terms, if possible, if we can get enough of it and if we can keep hold of what comes to us, right? So the messaging is the same, and I think that really begins in teenage years. And then you just build on that then when they're adults.
Why do you think, slightly off topic, why do you think I'm such an emotional spender? From what
I'm an
you know
emotional
about
spender
me,
too.
huh?
I'm also an emotional eater, which is why I'm 4 stone overweight.
Well, they're
So
very
look,
similar.
they are, yeah, money and health. It's the same kind of rules. You asked, why do I think you're an emotional spender? Because you're human, right? I don't believe anybody who says they're entirely rational when it comes to money. I've never ever seen it in 28 years of doing my job. People who have been investing for decades, they're in their 70s, they know better. They are still on the phone to me worried about what Trump is going to do, what it's going to do with their pension fund. It's like, pensions and stock markets go up and down. Why are you worried? It's like, I don't know, but I am. Okay. You cannot divorce money from emotion any more than you can divorce, any more than you can turn your emotions on and off. You just can't do it. What you've got to do is kind of lean into the emotions. But sometimes you can put yourself, you can put sort of barriers in between yourself and bad decisions.
Yeah.
Saying I will never make a decision after I've had a glass of wine. Never make a financial or a spending decision after I've had a glass or two of wine.
Never make any decision.
No, of any kind. These are, I'll always keep something in my Amazon shopping basket for 48 hours before I hit buy.
Yeah.
Very often you've kind of, you realize you don't actually need it. things like this. These are sort of guardrails that you can put in place for yourself. But you can forget about ever being a rational spender or investor. I just don't believe that exists.
Yeah.
Sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you.
And I think we maybe all need to be a bit kinder to ourselves, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
That it's almost like me saying I'm an emotional spender is berating myself. And like you saying you're an emotional eater, you're berating yourself. It's just.
And I know it doesn't do me any good. Do you know what I mean? If I eat something that I know there's no nutritional value and I'm just going to regret it when I go on the scales next. And yet we do it anyway. I think that's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Some of us are more disciplined than others, right? In the way that some of us are more athletic than others. Some of us are more academically wired than others. You know, I do think, that said, right, even if that's your natural bent, you can overcome it to a degree if the incentive is there. So, you know, if I suddenly had a heart attack, chances are I'd suddenly be quite a bit better about my eating. I'd probably, you know, always a wake up call. And people make changes then. You know, touch wood, right? What happened? But I think sometimes a financial shock can make you really wake up as well. I mean, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. Yeah.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? That
Yeah.
many years of therapy have not unpicked.
No, not going to make you any less of a person.
Well, it makes you more of a person, right? Because you're more understanding and empathetic.
Yeah.
I think I actually think what we've covered there in young children and teens is actually very applicable to financial resilience to anybody.
Totally. Yeah, they're just small adults, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
particularly, I think I think you've just covered everything there. That's good.
You know, I read a stat, right? This is in Morgan Housel's new book, The Art of Spending Money, right?
Oh yeah.
My biggest job, most difficult job with my clients is getting them to spend their own money. This book is brilliant, right? But there was a stat in there: 60% of American parents with kids aged between 18 and 34 have supported their kids financially in the last year. Right, so if you've got
Wow.
kids between 18 and 34, you are 60% likely to have contributed to their financial sort of system. You know, they're contributed financially in the last year. So it's not like, and sometimes people say, oh yeah, you know, the kids will be off the payroll in a couple of years, like because they're like 20 and, you know, nearly finished their degree. I'm like, you wish. And, you know, my daughter had to have an emergency dash to Italy last week to sort of help out her boyfriend who had ended up having emergency surgery over there. Well, I helped her out financially.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, she's like, oh, she's got money saved. So I couldn't help but use it as a bit of a lesson. She's like, you know, I said, look, don't worry. I'll send you the money for the flight and all that. We'll sort it out when you come back. And then she's, oh God, it's going to be more. She's freaking out. I said, you've got money saved, right? She said, yeah, but I don't want to use that. That's kind of in pots for various things. I'm like, Ellie, use the money, right? You need to sometimes just loosen things a little bit, or stick it on a credit card and sort it out when you come back. This is an emergency situation, right?
Yeah.
You're not sort of spanking it on a holiday. It's an emergency situation. That's what credit cards are useful for. As long as you don't overstretch and you sort it out quickly when you come back. So even now, she's 25 and I'm trying to teach her, look, you need to just use the tools at your disposal. Don't kind of bunker yourself a little bit. I've put that money in a pot in Monzo and it cannot be used for anything else. It can if the universe throws something at you, right? So, yeah, they never stop learning and you never stop helping them. Pretty sure about
that. And then the other thing I was going to add in is that because I was very good at managing money as a child, but then I had this massive traumatic event happen as a late teenager. Then I lost all control of money. I think because my security, my biggest emotional need, was taken away from me. So I was terrible with money when I was at university. Although I was very good at getting grants and bursaries and any extra money, and I earned a lot of money, but I did take out all the loans. And then in my 20s, I was fine because I had really well paid jobs in my 20s, no kids, working in the city, you know, accountant. But then I lost financial control again once my life situation changed and I married somebody who wasn't aligned financially and had children and maternity leaves and a wedding, an expensive wedding and expensive holidays and keeping up with the Joneses and designer handbags. And I had like a decade of my life where I went through quite a lot of loss of financial control. And then in my 40s, I got it back. But then I lost it again because of just circumstance where, you know, I got divorced and then suddenly my children all live with me full time. And, you know, it's like,
Yeah, you're down to one income. You talked about being kind to yourself earlier on, and life is really hard at times, right? And obviously, I mean, the trauma that you went through as a late teenager, I mean, that would mess with anybody's mind. You know, we talk about the sort of the principles of teaching your kids personal finance. That's all very nice in the abstract, right? But the universe very often has completely different ideas. And so that's why, you know, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but there's always, you know, I've said probably at least half of the people listening to this are going to be like, yeah, but well, in my circumstances. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Right. There's no judgment here. Life is really, I'm desperate to swear here, but I'm going to keep your
you
clean
can
rating a
swear.
little bit. Well, I was going to say life is really fucking difficult at times.
Yeah.
We really don't want, we can't sort of go through life expecting it to be like Instagram. Everything's just perfect every time.
Shit happens, right?
It really does. And if when it's going well, we can just protect ourselves a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, try to put some money away that isn't touched. But even then, circumstances might be that you blow through that really quickly and then, man, okay, now it's really, really hard. We can't beat ourselves up over that. But neither should we be the victim, I think. As difficult
Yeah.
as it is for me to say that, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, this happens. I think the second you're a victim and stuff is happening to you, there's always millions of people in a much worse position than you are. And I think we sometimes need to
Yeah.
keep some context, right? Easy for me to say. So I'm very aware that might sound really glib. But I think we do need to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
And just treat the world as it is. It's really hard at times. That we just got to do our best to cope with it. Really, none of us have a clue what we're doing. And if we happen to sort of be lucky, then that's great. We should celebrate that. But never ever, never ever kind of take that for granted. And neither should we take credit. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes with money comes arrogance and ego. I hate that. That's the thing you really don't want to teach your kids. So yeah, look, I think we just need to go easy on ourselves, try putting good controls, protect ourselves while we can, but understand that the world is hard sometimes and reach out for help, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Right. 2 quick fire questions to end
Okay.
with. You've probably told me the answers to these before, so think of a different answer, please. What's your biggest financial success?
Buying my company. I was very fortunate. When I joined Jackson's in 2005, I joined as a self-employed advisor, so I was just kind of working under their auspices, but they invited me to buy into the company, buy some shares in January 2007. I mortgaged to the hilt to do it. Proper stretch.
Yeah.
Almost like, yeah, this is going to be touch and go, actually. We're certainly not having any holidays for a few years. Best financial decision I've ever made by any stretch. I've worked like a dog to make it work, but it's been the best financial decision I've ever made comfortably.
And what about your biggest financial failure?
Don't want to be flippant. I had the opportunity to buy a keyboard. I am being a little bit flippant here. Like keyboard, as in a synthesizer musical keyboard. It was on sale for £5 at like a, sometimes when you go to the dump and they pull some stuff out, and you think, honestly, this keyboard was working. It was a Roland Jupiter 8. I could buy one now for £1,500, and I had the opportunity to buy it for a fiver. That's one of my biggest sort of financial regrets is that I didn't go back and buy it. As far as financial failure is concerned, I'm so aware how fortunate I've been, Lynn. I don't think I've ever monumentally screwed anything up. I suppose I did. I sold my Bitcoin too early. It was easy access. I
Yeah.
needed to get my hands on some money, so I sold it. I only had about $2,000 worth, but it would have been about 15 now.
It's
And
only
I
money.
kept it. Well, I know exactly. Look, if that's my biggest financial screw up, then I've been bloody lucky. Is all I can
Yeah.
say, right?
I
So,
when I take the sort of macro view of my life and my money life, I like to think that money flows. It comes and goes.
mhm,
Sometimes it's leaving, but it'll always come back again. Sort of like,
comes around.
yin and yang.
Yeah, we live in an abundant universe. Actually,
Mm.
it's easier than ever to make money. I would argue in the world of the internet, but it still requires hard graft, right? So,
Yeah.
I say it's easier. It's relative, but we're not like going down the mines anymore, are we? Do you know what I mean? We're not sort of working 18-hour days in the fields just to subsist. We've got it pretty good in 2025, but there's still challenges as well. So
Yeah. Cool. All right then. How can people find you, Pete?
just Google Meaningful Money. You'll find me. Meaningfulmoney.tv is the website. Everything kind of goes off from there. But if you Google Meaningful Money, you'll find the podcast and the YouTube channel and all that and the books.
Yeah, the podcast is really worth listening to. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't listen to money podcasts
Me
because
neither.
I'm not that interested by them. But I do occasionally watch your videos because they're quite entertaining, and they're normally like edited really well, and you've just got really good production quality behind it. But
Thank you.
I
I
have
spent a lot of money on these cameras.
I know, and I have obviously read both of your books.
Thank you.
That's a really great place to start, I think, with a book because it's like such a cheap thing to buy.
Yeah, and essentially it's all in there. You can
Yeah,
get it all for free on YouTube and stuff, but you have to find it. I've got
but you have to
700
sit
videos.
through it all. Just like
Yeah,
get an Audible book, listen to Pete talk through everything,
yeah,
and you're fine.
yeah. Job's a good one. And if I can help, then get in touch. We've got loads of ways we can help people. So just Google Meaningful Money, you'll find me.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. That was
Always a joy.
another fascinating discussion about things we've never talked about before.